Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're going to hear Canto 3, text 27, verse number 30, which says, when a perfect yogi's attention is no longer attracted to the byproducts of mystic powers, which are manifestations of the external energy, his progress towards me becomes unlimited, and thus the power of death cannot overcome him. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Yogis are generally attracted to by the byproducts of mystic yoga power, for they can become smaller than the smallest or greater than the greatest, achieve anything they desire, have power even to create a planet or bring anyone they like under their subjection. Yogis who have incomplete information of the results of devotional service are attracted by these powers. But these powers are material. They have nothing to do with spiritual progress. As other material powers are created by the material energy, mystic yogic powers are also material. A perfect yogi's mind is not attracted by any material power, but is simply attracted by unalloyed service to the Supreme Lord. For a devotee, the process of merging into the Brahman effulgence is considered to be hellish. The yogic power or the preliminary perfection of yogic power to be able to control the senses is automatically achieved. As for elevation to higher planets, a devotee considers this to be simply hallucinatory. A devotee's attention is concentrated only upon the eternal loving service of the Lord, and therefore the power of death has no influence over him. In such a devotional state, a perfect yogi can attain the status of immortal knowledge and bliss. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the third canto, 27th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Understanding Material Nature. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, it's very good to be a genuine yogi or a perfect yogi. And the symptom is that the yogi's mind is not attracted by any material power, but is simply attracted by unalloyed service to the Supreme Lord. For a devotee, the process of merging into Brahman effulgence is considered to be hellish, and yogic power, or the preliminary perfection of yogic power, to be able to control the senses is automatically achieved. As for elevation to higher planets, a devotee considers this to be simply hallucinatory. A devotee's attention is concentrated only upon the eternal loving service of the Lord, and therefore the power of death has no influence over him. In such a devotional state, a perfect yogi can attain the status of immortal knowledge and bliss. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 27th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Understanding Material Nature. Haribol, where's the Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai? Now we'll go on to chapter 28. Kapila's instructions on the execution of devotional service. Text number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vaksye Sabi Jasya Nripat Majay Mano Yenaiva Vithina Prasanam Yatisat Patam. The personality God had said, my dear mother, a daughter of the king. Now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C.A. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapila Deva in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it has been carefully stated that the desired results of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. It is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, Personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Jnana, and Samadhi. All these stages of practice, by all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system, as explained by Kapila Deva. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Ashtanga Yoga is therefore part of Ashtanga Yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. Well, what is a constitutional position? It's one of pure devotional service. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Okay, so today, as we've seen many times, the practice of yoga doesn't mention any of these points. It's all about, your health, breathing, and your different physical ways of bending or twisting your body. uh, and what's important, the statement says that the achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designation and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Well, what is one's constitutional position? It's the I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Not that I am the eternal, uh, let's say, controller and enjoyer of the material nature. That would be completely wrong. So the ultimate, let's say, achievement in yoga practice, what is that? Freedom from all material designation and situation in one's constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Okay, text number 2. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this verse, there are many important words which could be very elaborately explained, but we shall briefly discuss the important aspects of each. The final statement is Atmavik Shara Archanam. Atmavit means a self-realized soul or bona fide spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the super soul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here, it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him archanam, for by inquiring from and worshiping him, one can learn the spiritual activities. The first recommendation is sva archa macharanam. As long as we have this material body, there are various duties prescribed for us. Such duties are divided by a system of 4 social orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. These particular duties are mentioned in the Shastra, and particularly in the Bhagavad Gita. Swadharma Charanam means that one must discharge the prescribed duties of his particular division of society faithfully and to the best of his ability. One should not accept another's duty. If one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. If, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community, by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity. Then his swadharma, or duty, is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of God. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of swadharma. So, what is our real swadharma, or our real occupation in life? That is to be the eternal servant of the Lord without any material hankering or desires, and with no hesitation. One should be fully engaged in devotional service and be fully satisfied with it, not by hankering for different types of sense gratification. So, a very nice statement here is that it says one should not accept another's duty. Now, we've heard that many times in these purports. If one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. If, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma, or duty, is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The swadharma is what we are actually meant to do eternally. It's not a temporary thing. So when we come to the conclusion that I am not this body belongs to Krishna, and the real purpose of my life is to serve Krishna with love and devotion, free from all hankerings and desires for sense gratification. Then they become engaged in full-time Krishna consciousness with no regrets, no turning back, and no, let's say, doubts. Uh, Doubts in Krishna consciousness are demons. We should not have any doubt about what we're doing, but we have to be convinced that what we're doing is the right thing, and we should then make unadulterated devotional service the main purpose of our life, so that we can come closer and closer to Krishna. So, the actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of swadharma, or swadharma means what you're really meant to do in life. All right. So these are pretty clear statements by Srila Prabhupada. And once we accept these, let's say, duties in Krishna consciousness, then it's possible to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity. Then his swadharma, or real duty, is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we should aim for. It's really nice, let's say, clear cut explanation by Srila Prabhupada. What is the actual purpose of life? Everybody is born with a mundane designation. You're born in a particular family and you follow what would be called the culture of that family. But if one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma or duty is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of swadharma, or what is our duty, real duty in life. So that is a fundamental question. Uh, what is our real duty in life? There's so many things that we can do or claim to be our duty in life, but what is the real duty that we should perform in this lifetime? Well, we should come to the conclusion that one, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and the controller of everything. And Krishna uh, is the supreme goal of life. One should give up everything else and dedicate all their activities, thoughts, and actions in the service of the Supreme Lord without any hesitation. Then their mind becomes very peaceful and the senses become controlled and they can begin to make tangible spiritual advancement, being completely free of the designation of birth in a particular society or community. Why? Because they become elevated to the standard of spiritual identity. Then one's swadharma or duty, swadharma means one's duty in life, real duty in life, is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord as long as one remains in the bodily concept of life. He may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is real execution of swadharma or duty. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So the main point here is that actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna is to serve the Lord Krishna. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of swadharma, or your duty in this lifetime. Okay. Any questions? So what's interesting is it says here, a self-realized soul or a bona fide self uh, um, So Atmavit means a self-realized soul or bona fide spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows that his relationship with the supersoul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here, it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto Archana, whereby inquiring from and worshiping him, one can learn spiritual activities. This mainly the problem of material life is identification with the body, and that means identifying with some uh, group of people uh, that have mundane conception of life. So you have all kinds of different groups of people in the material world that identify themselves. So you have people who are uh, uh, American Indians. So they are a group of people in the United States. And you have Irish people, and then you have people that are uh, identified as L, uh, L, ladies who are lesbians or men who are homosexuals. There are all kinds of groups of people. All of those types of identification are false, and they're based on a certain type of sense gratification. A devotee or a genuine devotee gives up all kinds of false identifications like that. And they understand the real purpose or the real uh, uh, concept of I am. I am means that you have consciousness. And when you say I am the eternal servant of Krishna, that is the correct consciousness. When you say I am this or I am that, uh, then you have not reached the purpose of uh, understanding who you are. Who am I? I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. What should I do? I should be eternally engaged in the devotional service of Krishna. What is the goal of life? That is serving Krishna without any material desire. So we're not serving Krishna in order to be liberated and go to the heavenly planets or even go back to Godhead. Why? Because Krishna is present everywhere. So whether we're serving Krishna in the material world or we're serving Krishna in the spiritual world, uh, we are liberated either way. So therefore, the devotee is not seeking any material desire. So liberation is actually a material desire. It is not a spiritual desire. Spiritual desire is simply to be engaged eternally in devotional service, whether it's in the material world or in the spiritual world, without any hankering one way or the other. One is simply dedicated, or the real swadharma is to be completely dedicated in the service of the Lord without any other desire. Okay, you cannot live without desires. So that's what the Mayavadis try to do. They try to eliminate all desires, but that's impossible. But you can purify all desires. Then you can engage full time in Krishna consciousness and not have any doubts or regrets. So the nice statement here is as long as we have the material body, there are various duties prescribed for us. Such duties are divided by a system of four social orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. These particular duties are mentioned in the Shastra, and particularly in the Bhagavad Gita. Swadharma charanam means that one must discharge the prescribed duties of his particular division of society faithfully and to the best of his ability. One should not accept another's duty. If one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. If, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma or duty is solely that is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of Swadharma. Swadharma means what is the real duty of the living entity. Okay. Any questions?
I'm a little confused by the word duty.
Duty?
I'm thinking that it's partially the Brahmana, Kshatriya, or the orders versus societal duty. Like I'm a father, so or I go to work, so I have to please the boss and my coworkers. I just want to make sure I understand the word duty for my prescribed duties.
Well, it's Swadharma. That means that my actual duty is to be free of all material hankerings and simply desire to serve Krishna with love and devotion. That means now that you're a liberated person and you're self-realized, meaning that now you understand who you really are. Self-realized means you understand who you really are. So this question is asked by people. They ask themselves, and everybody at one point asked themselves, who am I exactly? Am I this or am I that? Am I connected to this group or that group? Uh, so when you realize I'm not connected to any designation in the material world, but I am the eternal servant of Krishna. There's so many identifications in the material world, but when one frees themselves from all these different varieties of self-identification, and one comes to the conclusion that I am actually the eternal servant of Krishna, and I have no attraction to material nature. I'm not interested in becoming this or that in the material world. Just like a lot of people, they see very rich people like Elon Musk or others, and they say, "Well, I want to be like." But devotee is not interested in being a mogul, a very rich and powerful person. A devotee is rather attracted to humility and faithfulness in devotional service and engaging in full-time devotional service. So they don't teach that in school. There's no school, no public school or private school is teaching that goal of being a genuine devotee, always engaged in devotional service, and free of material hankerings. So, people, you ask a person, what do you want to be in life? They say, well, I want to be a doctor. Or I want to be this, or I want to be that. So those are all temporaries. I want to be. You're not. Your eternal position is not to be a doctor or a lawyer or an Indian chief. The real Swadharma is to be the eternal servant of God or Krishna. Swadharma means what your real duty is in life. Okay, so one needs to be also Atmavit, a self-realized soul or bona fide spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the super soul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him. This is called archanam. For by inquiring from and worshiping him, one can learn spiritual activities. Okay, so real, let's say, uh, bona fide spiritual master is Srila Prabhupada. So, uh, if someone wants to be a guru or a real devotee, they have to surrender to Srila Prabhupada, who is our closest, let's say, pure devotee. When I say closest, well, uh, we have so much information of who Srila Prabhupada is and what he did and how he did it and uh, the different pastimes of Prabhupada. And so, therefore, if we focus our attention on Srila Prabhupada and engage in devotional service and follow his example of complete surrender to Krishna. And I don't know if you've seen that the last moments of Prabhupada's life, he was translating Bhagavad Gita or translating Shastra right up to the moment that he left his body. Right. So that means that his whole concentration throughout his life was uh, glorifying Krishna, and even up to the last moment of his life, he was translating or explaining uh, Krishna's transcendental pastimes and uh, leaving a legacy of transcendent, purified transcendental knowledge for the devotees. So that the picture of those last minutes of Prabhupada's life, he's still translating and explaining Krishna consciousness. So that was what he was doing throughout his life, and that was what he was doing at the moment of death. So actually, a person like that never dies because he is eternally present in his teaching and his inspiration to help other people become Krishna conscious. Okay, he wasn't thinking, well, what's going to happen with this property? Who's going to get it? And so things like that. He wasn't thinking like that at the moment of death. He was just thinking of Krishna and still instructing the devotees how to become genuine devotees. In fact, let's look up at the last uh, things that Prabhupada was doing. You have it. I mean, uh, you have not simply uh, photographs of it. You actually have it on the uh, in uh, what you would call video. Yeah. video of his last moments. That's actually rare to have that. Mhm. Right. Uh, Let me post the last moments of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, see more. Let me post the last moments of Srila Prabhupada from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by His Holiness Satsvarupa Das Goswami on November 14, 1977 at 7:30 p.m. in his room at the Krishna at his room at the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavana. Srila Prabhupada gave his final instruction by leaving this mortal world and going back to Godhead. His departure was exemplary because his whole life was exemplary. His departure marked the completion of a lifetime of pure devotional service to Krishna. A few days before the end, Srila Prabhupada had said he was instructing as far as he could, and his secretary had added, "You are the inspiration." Yes, Srila Prabhupada had replied, "That I shall do until the last breathing." Prabhupada's last breathing was glorious, not because of any last minute mystical demonstration, but because Srila Prabhupada remained in perfect Krishna consciousness. Like grandfather Bismadeva, he remained completely collected and completely collected and noble and brave, teaching until the end. He was preaching that life comes from life, not from matter. And he was showing that one should preach with every breath he has. The many devotees who crowded the large room bore witness that up to the very end, Prabhupada remained exactly the same. There was nothing sudden. Oh, okay, I lost it. Hmm. I don't know why it gets lost like that.
This is a video as well.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, he's preaching right up to the last moment. really, really fall. This is really, really good fall. Uh, this is the raw and so the one that this time you stand for one month. How to win briefly in war. We found this very militant in regarding this one that
VP, senior managers, CEOs, and successful businesswomen, are you tired of the exhaustion and burden required?
Started hearing your started hearing the nonsense started hearing your advertisements. That was it? Nothing else? Carlos, Carlos agent. Carlos, George and I started we met in determination. And it's been this in this translated is able to and they overlooked the agent there. And according to the application of the admission, we get about it. I don't know but done therefore, we should always seek look to do what is, you know, yes, while they are one of the state of home, take it on. Yeah, the really do education, then we better than knowledge. That means have faith. And then it's always something. So if we have the chance of the patients is devoted, then our character, better, we don't get this. The other one is not do. And the other one we had, I want to come out and do what I want. You know, it's the difference. It's the
increases relax ingredient and that changes the entity exists in this material one in many forms. Therefore, uh, this is brought in a form that is established and one not how to bring people in ground and qualification really need and carry on money in the state.
Haribol. Prabhupada was preaching right up to the last moment, his last breath that he was taking. That means that he was a Maha uh, purified devotee, and last thoughts, last statements were all spiritual. So that is a practical example of a pure devotee. And you're seeing it. It's there in the video, what he was thinking of and doing at the last moments of his life. Why? Because that's what he was doing throughout his life. So if you practice always being Krishna conscious throughout your life, and at the moment of death, that's exactly what you'll be doing also. Talking about Krishna, glorifying Krishna, instructing the devotees how to be Krishna conscious, and so forth. So it says, the takeaway today from this verse number 1 of Canto 3, chapter 28, says, the achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designation and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Okay, so there's freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. What is one's constitutional position? That is always being engaged in Krishna's service with love and devotion. Then one is free from all material designations and situated in one's constitutional position of being the eternal servant of the Lord. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. So now we understand what is real yoga. It's not the boga yoga of the Mayavadis and the speculators. They're doing breathing exercises to improve their health. And they're twisting their body this way and that way to become healthy and becoming, let's say, famous for being able to twist their body in different ways. That's not real yoga. Okay. So, did Prabhupada do any yoga exercises? No. He was always preaching Krishna consciousness and doing Harinam Sankirtan, things like that. He was not showing different yoga positions. Uh, That's what I like about Prabhupada. He was doing the real thing. The real thing, real yoga is to connect to Krishna, always be engaged in Krishna conscious activities with love and devotion. Okay, so here it says, there are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system, as explained by Kapila Deva. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Astanga yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Well, one's constitutional position is to be always a devotee and engage in devotional service with no material desires, simply desiring to please Krishna. Any questions? Here it says that it is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, has here explains that the yoga system known as Astanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. But all these stages of practice, by all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates his mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system, as explained by Kapila Deva. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Astanga yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Very nice statements by Prabhupada. So, what is our real constitutional position? That is to be completely surrendered to Krishna and engaged in his devotional service with no hankerings for material satisfaction. You'll get much better satisfaction than material satisfaction because you'll be engaged in Krishna's service eternally. The material satisfaction is temporary. Spiritual engagement in the service of Krishna is eternal. So we should give up what is temporary and take up what is eternal. Because whatever is temporary means it's going to come to an end. whatever is eternal means there's no end. There's no beginning and no end. It's eternal. Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, we'll go to text 2. That we will just read it quickly and then we'll stop. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. So, getting as much gain as one can achieve by the grace of the Lord. That means not trying to be the richest person in the world, just trying to be an honest devotee. And whatever Krishna is giving us easily without the severe tapasya and things like that, we should be satisfied. Okay, so no more questions. We will stop there. And our takeaway is that it is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become happy or joyful. One can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality Godhead, who's the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. But all these stages of practice, by all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates his mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system. As explained by Kapila Deva, even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Ashtanga yoga is therefore not part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. That is our takeaway. It's ultimate achievement in yoga practice. And that is being engaged full-time in Krishna's service and meditating always on Krishna and his pastimes, and also helping others to understand who Krishna is. That's why it says here that by all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. So that explains what is the real purpose of life, to understand Krishna and engage in Krishna's service. Haribol. All right. Any questions, comments? Okay, so our takeaway here is to begin. The Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. That's the absolute truth. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power, one should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna consciousness. Okay, so what is that? Last verse of the 6th chapter. Famous verse. Where is my brother? Yoginam api sarvesam adgatanatratmanam
Vaitratyastatena Tadbhavan Vajate Yomam Same Yukta
samayutta.
Tamomata Same Yukta Tamomata. Of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always thinks, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
Very good. That is my opinion. That means Krishna is giving the actual, real goal of life. Yoginam api sarvesam adgatanatratmanam Shadavam Bhajate Yomam Samayutta Tamomata. Right. All right. That is 6th chapter, 47th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, which says, and of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So, what time is it? Okay, we have time to read this purport. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the personality, Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshiping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do so, he falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows. Ya Isham Purusham Shakshad Atma Prabhavan Ishwaram Na Bhajanti Ava Jananti Stanat Brasta Patantyada. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall from his constitutional position. In this verse also, the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. The word abhajananti used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is also found in the Bhagavad Gita avajanantimam mudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the self, to the
And
to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the super self by different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called Astanga Yoga. And when one surpasses the Astanga Yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it is called Bhakti Yoga, the culmination. Factually, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to the particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name, karma yogi, jnana yogi, or raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as when we speak of Himalayan or refer to the world's highest mountains, of which the highest peak is Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyam Sundara, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yasoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. This stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by bhakti yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Yasya devi para bhakti yata devi tata guru tasyaite katitahi artat pasat samte mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Svatasvatara Upanishad 6.23. Bhaktir asya vajanam tat iham mutro padi nairas yen na mus min mana kalpanam etad eva naiskaramyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of nice karmya. Gopalatapani Upanishad 1.15. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Dhyana Yoga. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Jai. So this is the 6th chapter, 47th verse. Yoginam apisarve sam mad gatananta mad gatananta atmana shadavam bhajate yomam samyukta tamo mata. And what does it say? And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Haribol. So that is our takeaway today. The 47th verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Haribol. And any questions, comments? And today's what? It's the last day of
The year,
yeah.
31st December.
Wow. This year went by pretty fast. Haribol.
I always remember with December 31st, Maharaj, your example. Your one of the friend, he said that he will chant only on the December 31st.
That's crazy guy.
As soon as the word December 31st comes, I recall that.
Yeah. He's a very wealthy guy. He was a very close devotee of Prabhupada, a Treya Rishi. He was a GBC, he was everything. And he made me a GBC because he knew he was going to leave the movement. So he made sure that I took his position. And that was a shame because as soon as he put me in the position of a GBC, he left the movement. And I got shocked because, I was completely beholden to him. He was my, mentor, And as soon as he put me in that position that he had, he left. Right? He had a plan, right? And he's never come back, unfortunately. Anyway, what can you do? I got really surprised because I was expecting to be, tutored by him, and he was my very close friend, but he had another plan, right? So he puts me under the GBC, and then he leaves. He put me in his position, and then he just left the movement, and he's never come back again. And I haven't seen him now for a very long time. Sometimes I would see him after that, but now I don't see him at all, which is unfortunate. Okay. And then one time I did see him. I said, are you chanting? He said, yeah, I chant once a year on New Year's Eve. But my once a year chanting is more better than all your chanting all year round. He was a very clever guy, very, very clever guy. But he was wrong. Prabhupada never said chant only once on New Year's Eve. He never said that, right? So this was his concoction in his brain, to prove that he's different than everyone else or better than everyone else. And he said that to me. He said, my one chanting on New Year's Eve is better than all your chanting. So Said much better than that. But did Prabhupada ever say that you should only chant once? No. He said you should never stop chanting. So what he said was nonsense. But he was a very clever guy. Very, very clever guy. And he was very, very wealthy. But where is that going to get him? Not very far. Okay, well, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today's the last day of the year, right? Haripol. So every time there's an end, there's always a beginning. So that means that we're going to start off the new year tomorrow. Jai. So tonight, people will be drinking champagne and talking nonsense, and ushering in the new year with the, let me call it, the firecrackers and making a lot of noise, a
lot of intoxication.
lot of the champagne and, but that's not the way. We'll be chanting Hare Krishna tonight, ecstatic, to usher in the new year. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very, very much. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All right, any questions? If not, well,
Any question online?
come to the temple tonight to usher in the new year.
No questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.